And I want to welcome everyone for this lecture this evening. It's great that you're here. Nice full crowd for Jamie Maslyn Larson. I want to thank our sponsors. They include the College of the Environment and Life Sciences, Graduate School of Oceanography, College of Arts and Sciences, the Society of Landscape Architects, the Rhode Island chapter, and Landscape Forms. I will not tell you that you have to use their products. I want to also thank our students. We have students who helped with the reception this evening. And I would say, just a reminder, on October 30th, Kate Orff is coming from Scape, also a New York firm. And so you ought to mark your calendar. Tonight we're very pleased to have Jamie Maslyn Larson of the firm West 8 speaking. West 8 was established in Amsterdam and has a New York office, and Jamie is principal of that firm. She's a partner, managing principal, registered landscape architect in New York, Florida, and Pennsylvania. She serves as the principal in charge of West 8's New York projects, or American projects, and some of them include Governor's Island. It was a competition in 2007. The firm won the international competition and has since designed the first phase of that park, and it opened up this year. She's also responsible as manager of Miami Beach Soundscape Project, which is a 2.5-acre project in the heart of Miami Beach, Ontario Place in Toronto, and a master plan for Longwood Gardens. She's received awards and commendations. She's received an ASLA Honor Award for Governor's Island for the park and the public space in 2012, an AIA, American Institute of Architects, Honor Award for Regional and Urban Design for the Soundscape Miami Beach project. She's also received awards from the New York and Florida chapters of the American Society of Landscape Architects. And very important is the ability to win an international design competition, which was Governor's Island. She's spoken at the AIA annual meeting in Denver, ASLA annual meeting in Phoenix, which was 2013, and she's lectured at the Architectural League's annual student program at Rutgers University, Colorado State, and in Nova Scotia. She received a Master's of Landscape Architecture from Utah State University and a Bachelor of Fine Arts from Northern Arizona University. But don't think she's not from the East Coast. She was born between Rochester and Syracuse in New York. So we're pleased to have Jamie here this evening, and I just need to add one small piece, is that we wouldn't have Jamie here this evening, but her uncle, who she hasn't seen in 25 years, contacted me last spring and said, I have a niece. And I said, so what does your niece do? Oh, she's a landscape architect. So he must have been familiar with our lecture series, and I said, great, send me some information on her. And so he sends me a blurb, and I go, oh, she's a principal of West 8? So Charles Waldheim, our last speaker, was speaking about the work that the firm had done in Toronto. And so it's a great connection, a little bit landscape urbanist and a landscape architect. So I'd like everyone to welcome Jamie Maslyn Larson.
Thank you. I'm going to have to... Okay. Can you guys hear me okay? Okay, great. Thank you, William. Thank you, everybody, for having me here. This is really fun. We just had dinner with a few people, and I feel already so welcome. And I am especially warmed by having my uncle and aunt here tonight, who I haven't seen in 25 years, so they're right there in the middle. This is a little bit of a family reunion, and I titled my lecture tonight, What If Parks Could Dream? Part of this ties back to the Maslyn family, which I'm a Maslyn, because we're a very practical group of people. We're very pragmatic and sober-minded. I am from a solid stock of folks, and one time my dad said to me, when we were just graduated from undergrad school, and I wanted to move to Montana, and I had no job, and I had $200, and he thought it was the dumbest idea in the world. And I said, "Well, Dad, you know, this is a dream of mine. I really want to do this." And he said, "Well, Jamie, you have your dreams, and then you have reality." And I said, "Dad, you and I are on the totally different planet." So ever since then, I've always felt that there is the possibility to merge dreams and realities together, and I've never felt that there's a way that you have to differentiate that. And my dad and I have talked about this. We're great friends, so it's not a bitter ending to this. It was just a motivation for me, and I think it really reflects in the work of West 8 and the philosophy of how we take things that are kind of maybe sometimes outrageous ideas and make them happen, and it's through a great deal of perseverance and serious work that we do our work. So tonight I just want to focus on 3 projects, both very different scales, and talk a little bit about how some of our dreams became reality. Just by sort of defining what we do as landscape architects, you guys are students and practitioners and I'm not sure what else, but when we start a project, oftentimes this is the kind of situation we face, which is this gray, dismal, horrible context of reality, and where it takes an incredible amount of vision to imagine the possibilities and potential. And everybody has dreams. Everybody wants this to be the greatest new place in the planet, the centerpiece of their community. It solves all their problems. It creates redevelopment opportunities. It brings families and communities together, and we try to make all that happen. But there are real hardcore issues that we have to face when we start a project. Things like poor infrastructure, isolation from downtown cores, environmental problems, just the context of what the weather is like can often be times challenging to these projects. West 8 is founded in Rotterdam in the Netherlands, and we've been around for 25 years, built projects all over the world. Our logo is a windsock, which is relating to the name West 8. A lot of people ask, what does West 8 mean? Is it an address or something? But it's actually referencing the wind speed and the kind of force of wind out of the port of Rotterdam. So west is the prevailing wind speed, and 8 is the kind of on a scale from 0 to 10, dangerous but not life-threatening. So that's how the name West 8 came around. It's all about the kind of context of the environment, the sort of relationship of people to that context, and of course as a Dutch firm, 8 is when, beyond 8 is when the locks and dams get shut down so that they go into kind of protection mode, because it's 30% of the country is under the sea level, so they really have to really do a lot of work to protect their landscape and their livelihood. So this is a firm, West 8 is a firm that's deeply tied to the environment and kind of responding to these forces of nature. In New York office, there's about 15 to 17 of us, depending on how many interns we have. And then in Rotterdam, there's about 60 of us. We're a mix of, mostly in New York, we're architects and landscape architects, but in Rotterdam, we also have a team of industrial designers and graphic designers and more architects. So it's a nice diverse group. Our firm is organized very horizontally, so we really try to get ideas from everybody that works with us. It's not, there isn't like the prophet and then all of us are disciples. It's very, very much ideas come from all of us. So it's a really fun environment. It's very much idea focused. We don't spend a lot of time talking about business. We spend a lot of time drawing and designing. Probably what put West 8 on the map was this project in Rotterdam. It's called Schaarbenplein, which means theater plaza. And this is sort of representative of what William was saying about our firm being what we're kind of known for, which is this plaza is has these movable. These are actually. You can operate these. People can operate these light masts. They move up and down and shine spotlights on this very simple plaza. The whole idea was this was referencing the heritage of the Port of Rotterdam, but also creating a kind of theater place, very flexible, open environment for people to make their own kind of show. So there isn't program here in the way that you see and hear so much about in American parks now. This is like completely open-ended, and really it's about sitting on the edge in these seats and watching people animate this and make their own show. So it's very highly programmed. Like I said, these are very sculptural light masts. They're operable, and they really are the kind of focal point of this community. We also have worked on large-scale redevelopment projects. This is in Amsterdam. This is an old port, Borneo-Sporenburg. And we made a whole community here. We worked on the urban design guidelines and the public space to make this community. We also, as I mentioned, we have industrial designers, so we have a lot of infrastructure projects like bridges and so on. This is one that's in Borneo-Sporenburg, and part of what we do is in projects like this are really devoid of you know, like human nature, human sensitivity and kind of feeling, is to bring sort of life and joy and happiness to our projects by making things that make people smile. So this could have just been a straightforward bridge, but we made this crazy, windy, curvy bridge that really has brought identity to this neighborhood. And whenever I show this to our American clients, they just freak out because they think this is so dangerous, so we could never do this here. We also just finished, as William said, we win a lot of projects by competition. We won a major competition in 2003 for about 7 miles of riverfront in Madrid. This is what it looked like before. It was surrounded by highways. This was basically the big dig of Madrid, so about 30 kilometers of highways were sunk and capped with parks, and we worked rapidly to complete this work. This is what it looks like today, so this is one of our largest projects that's been complete. Really, we don't even know how much money was put in this because it's Madrid. It's like a whole nother system of economy and political movements, but what it's really done is stitched together these neighborhoods that were once separated by these freeways, and now bringing this kind of wonderful scale pedestrian experience, this sort of comfort and relaxation of playgrounds and promenades to back to the river. We also do, we have sort of a work that along the way has been more artful. This is actually a kind of a protest piece. A lot of like the United States, a lot of the countryside in the Netherlands is being eaten up by sprawl development. So we commissioned giant sort of inflatable cows to be sprinkled throughout the countryside to have people recognize that their agricultural landscape and their agricultural heritage was being eaten up by this kind of sprawl. And so this was actually the cover of our monograph that was out several years ago, and so we're really, you know, into saving the environment. So I just want to start with a couple projects. These are focused on the work that the New York office has done, and we opened the New York office in 2008 after we won the competition for Governor's Island. I was the first American hire, and since then we've built it up over time. This project came in 2010. It's Miami Beach Soundscape, and this was actually West State's first project that was built in the United States. So after 25 years, this was the first one built. It opened in January 2011. And when we started, this was a parking lot, 2.5-acre parking lot, right in the heart of Miami Beach. Lincoln Road Mall is just over here. The beaches are right on the other side. All those hotels are right on Ocean Drive and Collins Avenue. But they were opening a new Frank Gehry designed institution called the New World Symphony. And this was kind of a graduate school for orchestral students. So kids from around the world who are like the best in show for symphonies come here to work with Michael Tilson Thomas, who's a world famous conductor, to sort of do their finishing school here. So we started, and the building was halfway or more than halfway through construction, and we were really inspired by, in this case, Frank Gehry's architecture didn't have all the swoopy stuff on the outside. He put all the swoopy stuff on the interior. So these were the kind of shapes and forms that we confronted when we first started this project. And our approach to the project was to take those, abstract them, and have them kind of, spill out from the building into the park. So we created this kind of mosaic pattern of shapes, and refined them over a lot of work and study, so that walking through this small park, 2.5 acres, wouldn't be, like, let's just get from A to B, but you actually had to sort of shift your views and shift your way you walk through the park and create windows and views based on that shifting experience. So in the end, the park would feel much larger than it is because of the shifting views and that you have along the way, and gently modulating the topography so it enhances the sense of enclosure. But really, it was all about framing the beautiful architecture and making it feel like an enclosed room from the streets that are around the perimeter. A key piece of this building program was using the building for outdoor projections. So this is a 75-foot by 100-foot blank wall on the side, and there's a projection tower here that shines and simulcasts the orchestra from the interior into the outdoor experience. So this was a vision of Michael Tilson Thomas because he really wanted to bring a kind of egalitarian experience to orchestra. This is no tuxedos and ball gowns experience. This is like hanging out in the outdoors, having a glass of wine, letting your dog run around, and listening to beautiful orchestra music. So phenomenal. And our job was to try to integrate that into the park in a way that day to day it didn't feel like this big like plaza-like space, that it really felt like a park, and then at night it would come alive. So we worked with another critical issue to make that day-to-day experience really comfortable in Miami Beach was shade, because it's very hot there. And we worked with Vicha palm trees, which have a really very skinny trunk. And we studied a lot how these Vicha palms can create a kind of a veil effect against the building to accentuate the sight lines of the building, but create shade at the same time. This is a lot of study. One of those things that at the end of the day, I don't think people know how many volumes of studies we have on how the palm trees work, but it was very tricky to balance out the desire to have open space and also deliver shade. Another piece that we had was a request from the city for a permanent shade structure, and this was because in Miami Beach there's hurricanes. If if there's a large hurricane and all of the trees are denuded, they really wanted to have permanent shade structures so that it didn't look just like a wasteland. So we were inspired by the cumulus clouds here that are in Miami Beach, and we kind of fractured them and abstracted them and made these pergola structures that are made out of aluminum pipe. Here's an image of it when we were studying it in model. And here they are installed. This was after opening day. They're actually really places where these bougainvilleas, the bougainvilleas are now high. I was just there Tuesday. The bougainvilleas are just about this high now, and they're going to climb over the top and create this permanent shade environment. But they've also become quite sort of iconic for entering into the park and feeling like you've arrived. This is the giant projection wall and the projection equipment. And this world-class audio system, this was just in New York Magazine, there was an article saying that this outdoor projection sound is the best in the country. You really, if you get to experience this, you'll be blown away. I bawled my eyes out when I heard the national anthem. I was like, oh my God, this is beautiful. So, but this is what it's like day to day now. Thousands of people come here to hang out and enjoy this place. There's movies in the park. There's these concerts in the park, and it's really become a part of the thing you do when you go to Miami Beach, and we're really proud of it. We're really proud that the community loves it. It's very simple. It was a very low-cost project. It's pretty much lawn, palm trees, and concrete, but it's really taking those simple materials and twisting them in a way that makes it look totally one of a kind. I'm so glad this worked. I wasn't sure if it would work. So another thing we just finished up was another competition that happened over the last year or so in New York City, sponsored by HUD, which was in response to Hurricane Sandy. So there were 10 teams that were asked to work on ideas to respond to increasing storm events and climate change in basically from New Jersey, New York, Connecticut, and Rhode Island. Our project we called Blue Dunes, and we specifically called it a research initiative because it's a big idea. I think Kate Orff will be here in a few weeks, so she'll hopefully talk about hers, because it's brilliant. And she's moving forward with some of that work. So a lot of good stuff came out of this, and a lot of projects are moving forward. Ours is a little aspirational. So I just want to explain it tonight because this is a big idea. So talking about dreams, this one's large. Oh, this is too bad. On my screen, you can see the coast here of the East Coast on a large scale. One of the things that was troubling about this is troubling about the political context around any initiatives that happen to solve, these major problems, is that our political system is divided into very specific jurisdictions that don't nest together in a way that solves big problems all the time. So it's been a long time since we've done anything like the Hoover Dam. It's been a long time since we've saved, as a country, major national areas of natural treasures. So there isn't this sort of, now I don't want to get political here, but it's true that there isn't this sort of federal agenda on issues like this. It tends to be more localized. And so that to us was a challenge that we wanted to provoke a little bit, because these issues aren't jurisdictional. They really don't come down to local initiatives. If you really want to solve them, we felt you need to take a bigger look, like on the level of, some like the interstate highway system that we built across the country. So as you know very well, you live in this area, there's not only the problem of hurricanes but nor'easters, and when these were combined, like in Superstorm Sandy, they can be incredibly damaging. There are issues of, you know all this. The combination of high tide and storms can create detrimental effects on our waterfronts. There's a lot of money at stake, no doubt. And the solutions are oftentimes highly engineered. So we think that when you're talking about thousands of miles of coastline, these sort of highly engineered approaches are single-minded, maybe problem-oriented and not holistic in their in their vision. We focused on the whole coastline, but in particular, there's issues along in the sort of New York City harbor area, where the Hudson River is actually a part of this whole system of exchange in the New York harbor, and it's incredibly important that anything we do keep that exchange open. But at the same time, because of the way the landscape is formed, it actually channelizes the problem in the context of these combination nor'easters and hurricanes, and it creates a double down effect right at the middle of the largest city in the United States. And so what we know is that when you have a kind of a curved coastline, these things deflect. So that was a sort of a high-level concept that we wanted to play with. So our idea was to create a large barrier island, a series of large barrier islands off the entire eastern seaboard, so that you would create, effectively a kind of a barrier that would not only stop the velocity, but then change the course of the water as it was approaching there. So this is the scale of the development. You can see coming, clear up all the way down in a series of barrier islands all along the coastline. Particularly, focusing around the New York harbor for this study. We zoomed in a little bit closer here. Now, benefit in creating all these off-coastal dunes is that you get a very new, rich ecology off of the water. We could imagine that this would be destination for recreation. Easily a desire for anybody who lives in New York and along the coast, where this is one of the most densely populated areas of the world. So creating a beautiful ecological experience that restores which is now wiped away by all of the development that occurs along Long Island and the Jersey Shore. This wasn't just a fantasy of ours. We actually worked with the Stevens Institute to test and model these ideas. So this is 90% science and 10% fantasy. We actually, through modeling, learned that this works. We do have benefits of reducing the velocity and the volume of water that actually would meet. You can focus on the sort of colors in the middle there, and you can see how the colors change because of the dunes. So blue is good, the higher tones are bad. And this is an analysis of the actual water volume and the height of the sea and the height of the water at the storm, showing that it's actually lowered quite a bit, substantially. And so we actually contacted a lot of risk management, and we contacted the insurance auditors and so on to get us involved in understanding, like, actually monetarily how much could we potentially save from working on this project. And then from a business development side, these communities have a lot of concerns. A lot of these communities are all about their waterfronts. There's certainly important to keep the livelihood of these communities in line. So we worked on how do we keep these programs and identities and creating new kind of infrastructure and new areas of tourism and new areas for play and new areas for ecology to be integrated into these dunes. Another issue was fishing, the livelihood of fishing, and also shipping, because that's a very large port, and we need to ensure that these shipping lines would also be valid when you build up barrier reefs. So this is all modeled and feasible. So we somehow imagined that there's this like other layer of activity beyond the New York Harbor that's really active in commerce, that's active in recreation, that's active in nature. Again, tons of modeling about the effects on ecology. How do we create and enhance new ecologies without undermining the ecologies that exist along the ocean? We learned that we could create more ecology through these dunes. And then there's this sort of like, how do you actually do it? Can you do this? How do you build dunes in the middle of the ocean? Part of it was in analyzing the heights of the continental shelf and the geomorphology and the sediment types here. I won't get too into it, but this also has never not been done before. People in the Netherlands are building these same sort of offshore dunes now, and of course there's other projects that in Dubai where you're building off-site islands and so on. So the technology isn't even a technology to build this. It's quite rudimentary. It's actually just not legalized in the United States yet. It has to do a lot with these old-fashioned shipping laws, and where you can't have these sort of tanker trucks that construct these islands in the Netherlands and in Dubai. They like suck the sand from one part of the ocean and dump it in the other. Like, there's laws in the United States that you can't have these foreign tanker trucks like dock in the United States waters. So there's federal laws that have to be changed in order for this to work. But it didn't stop us. We measured the quantity of material that we would need to do the blue dunes and the costs. And we really we took very seriously like the feasibility and the kind of image and the identity of how this could work. At the end of the day, it could be a very romantic, kind of beautiful destination, and we think there's lots of value in further studies for this, and HUD has been very supportive of continuing efforts to integrate some of these principles and doing a pilot project to have this move forward. So what brought us to the United States was Governor's Island Park and Public Space Project. This is in New York City, where I live, and we've been working constantly. We're still working on Governor's Island. This is a multi-phase project, and it's been really exciting working on it. This is Governor's Island around 2006. It's in the middle of the New York Harbor. It's 172 acres, and for almost as long as long as Europeans have been here. This has been used for military purposes. Before that, the Native Americans use this for gathering. There's a lot of nuts on this island. They called it Nuttin Island. But anyway, so it was a military base for a very long time, and then President Clinton, when he decommissioned a lot of military bases, this one was put up for closure. At one time, there was 10,000 people working here and 3,500 people living here. And when the federal government decided to give it to the city of New York for $1. And that was it was probably the second greatest real estate deal in New York history. But nobody knew what to do with it. There's no subways that go here. There's all these buildings. Clearly it's in an awesome location, but what do you do there, and how do you make it a destination or a kind of a new part of the city? There were some requirements that came with the transfer. One was that the North Island here. This is actually the original island. All of this is landfill from the Lexington Avenue subway line in the 1920s. The North Island was a historic district, so that had to be, preserved and restored, and all of its buildings was made a national landmark. The perimeter road needed to stay open for public use, so needed to be accessible at all for public enjoyment. In the South Island, 33 acres could be set aside for new development, and then 40 acres of the South Island had to be new park. Now, the new development, there was no casinos allowed. There was also no private residential housing allowed. So Donald Trump could never build a big tower right here. The federal government said this is a public asset. We always want it to be a public asset. So, but it left a lot of questions about what do you do there. You could put college campus here. You could put cultural institutions. You could put restaurants. You could put hotels. But how does that start? How does that get going when nobody knows about this place? I mean, literally, it was off maps of New York City. You can find maps, and it's not on maps. So nobody knew about it. It was like this weird thing that nobody ever went to in the city of 8 million people. So the decision was made to first build a park. And if you guys were all developers, you would say, that's crazy, because you can't start redevelopment by building a park. You have to start with development. But our very smart clients said, no, a park actually can shape the development, it can shape the identity, it can shape the future of what the very nature of this place is. So they launched an international design competition, and we won. And we immediately started asking ourselves, what is this park to New Yorkers? Like, how does this park relate to the way New Yorkers experience parks? And we knew it was pretty much the opposite of Central Park, where Central Park is stitched in with the neighborhood. You cross through it. It's millions and millions of people come here every day, but a lot of those people are people who just live here, who are just crossing through or walking their dog or hanging out or taking a bike ride. And so it's a part of the daily destination. In Governor's Island, you have to take a ferry to get out there, so this needed to be a draw. You needed to have enough to do. You had to have enough excitement out there that because everybody that was going to this place was making an effort, So we felt that you needed to at least we needed to have at least 2 hours of good times out here. So that was part of what we decided. The other piece is that this is an island, And New Yorkers, even though I live in Manhattan, you don't experience Manhattan as an island. You experience it as a city, and hardly ever feel the sensation. Like, many of us don't get to feel the sensation of being on an island and the sort of beauty of the sky day to day in our lives. So we really wanted to enhance this experience of being on an island, and it only takes 45 minutes to walk around the perimeter, so it's a little island. And that was really important to us too. And just getting there was a part of the fun. So you take a ferry, you know, all of a sudden the city is like miles away, even though you've just 500 yards from the edge of Manhattan. So this is our master plan from 2009. You can see the development zones. We shaped the development zones. We located 2 different areas, and we created a vision for this new public space. To give you a sense of what a deeper sense of what that vision is about, this is an early picture of Governor's Island right after they kind of finished the landfill project, and this was around World War I. So, World War II. So this was clearly a shipping and exchange kind of place. It was all about logistics. They didn't have any, didn't like shoot guns out here. This was really just about providing the infrastructure and support for the troops. So it was very utilitarian, to make a flat land and put these sort of barrack buildings out there. It made a lot of sense, but it didn't really create a great park-like feel when we got on board. This was flat, and naked, so it was quite ugly. A lot of the areas that were perfectly suitable for military uses, large, vast areas of asphalt, needed to be rethought of, and the trees that were there were kind of twisted and suffering because of this harsh environment and lack of real topsoils. Our concept was that in order for this place to be a destination, it needed to have its own kind of skyline, its own kind of presence within the context of the presence of New York City skyline. So we had this idea that we would build sort of our green skyscrapers out in the middle of New York Harbor. And part of this notion of building, lifting, and sculpting the island was these culminates in these green skyscrapers is that it is in the middle of the New York Harbor. As a Dutch company, we're constantly thinking about the environment, as I mentioned, and we needed to take into account sea level rise and climate change so that this park investment would be protected in the future and these trees would grow to be healthy for the next 100 years. So we really fundamentally had this notion of taking topography and sculpting that flat, barren landscape to make this new park. So in every sort of detail, we were measuring, sea level rise, testing it against our topography, but creating a beautiful place to be that you wouldn't even know you wouldn't experience it as some kind of infrastructure project. You would just experience it as a park. So we created a 2-level promenade so that these trees could be out of the brackish water. You still have a lower promenade, but the trees in the future would be protected. This is just a sequence of drawings we did in the early days. This is the original island, like I said. This is what the projected, the red line is the projected 100-year flood line. They're changing it now, but this is the projected 100-year flood line. You could see that the entire island, most of the South Island would be flooded where our park is and where the development zone would go. So through this bringing in new fill material and sculpting that landscape, we created a new datum, and the new datum actually creates a new building level for these development zones. And we were doing this in 2009, well before anybody was talking about these things, and we actually had to do a lot of work to convince our client to pay for this fill material, that it was worth the investment, because there's millions of dollars going into this. Now, we did do a lot of recycling of these old buildings that were on the island and reused them, but we still needed to import some more. So we were in construction when Hurricane Sandy happened.
I'm just curious what you used for sea level rise numbers.
It was the UN's climate change study from 2006, something like that. That's good. So when Hurricane Sandy happened, we were in construction on the park, and it was just sort of some of this gray fill material was out there, and the flood came in. So that datum you saw was about, we were building this, so the datum was here, but Hurricane Sandy came in 2 feet higher than that datum, so it actually leapt at the edges of our new elevation. We weren't sure what was going to happen. We knew we were doing the right thing, but when the hurricane came, it was quite nerve-wracking because we were being tested really early. But in fact, all of the contractors had parked their vehicles on top of this sea level material, and you can see this was like the level where Hurricane Sandy came, because it just sort of squished this material, but it was bone dry and it was solid as a rock, and we were quickly like, everybody was calling everybody in the city to see how everybody was doing, and we were quickly like, everything's fine, like there's not a problem here, we've got a park, it's going to be great. And we were very lucky to have thought of this. I say we're very lucky to have thought of this, but we're very lucky to have a client that allowed us to take this vision to reality, because it's a very challenging thing to take on. So this is sort of the simplistic plan of what we're building. We built this piece of the park now. It's about 30 acres, and we're in construction on this second piece, we call the hills. This is the third phase. So that red line is the datum, and this is what it'll look like eventually. Phase 1 is includes lots of this sort of afforestation area. This is a vision from the master plan. So this forest, like I said, will be protected for years and years and years. We were recognized in one of the documents that came after Sandy Success Stories, as a kind of a blueprint for best practices for park building. We opened this summer the first phase, and just want to show you some of the more artistic shots during construction. This is the fill material, so it was a combination of the demolished buildings on the island and then just quarry material from the Hudson River. It was all barged in. 80,000 cubic yards, plus an additional 40,000 cubic yards of soil that we manufactured on site. This is it in construction. And then we, to kind of frame and celebrate that investment, we created this sort of white eyeliner around these, we call these petals. And this white eyeliner helps accentuate the topography. This is over 3 miles of precast concrete that was made in Buffalo, New York. The guy went to the Sauerkraut Festival, by the way, Uncle Dave. This precast does a lot of things. Normally between, this is like a planted area and this would be an asphalt path. Normally you have a steel edger there, but this is replacing that steel edger, and it's creating a kind of a visible edge that helps guide people. It creates a mow strip, but it also, like I said, accentuates the topography and the sight lines and the beauty of these shapes. This is it open this summer, and you can see how it creates this Wizard of Oz effect, where you just want to walk down that path. You want to see what's around the corner. We also built a really large garden that's in the forecourt of this area. And this little sort of forecourt garden is as large as Bryant Park alone. And we worked with this sort of hedge shape to kind of mimic those petal shapes and to create fun play areas for little kids. So this isn't like playground play, but it's really fun for kids to run around these things. It's water features. So this is a really the heart of Governor's Island in terms of they have food carts and concessions and so on. And by the way, there isn't one single piece of, all these buildings are totally empty. There isn't anything to do out here except hang out in the park. And this summer there's 500,000 people that came out here. So you can't go to a restaurant, there's no museums, there's nothing to do here except hang out in the park. And so there's a lot of programming that our client does. But people in New York just want to relax. You know, there isn't really a lot of programming here, actually. We said we had to have 2 hours or 2.5 hours of things to do, but we ended up not doing much except having relaxing areas for people to hang out. So now we're in construction on the second phase, and that's building what's the culmination of this topography, and we call it the hills. So this area, you know, sculpts and shapes and shifts, and it's very traditional landscape architecture. It's totally a knockoff of Frederick Law Olmsted. But it culminates in these hills. This is just a model shot, but we created 4 hills, and the tallest one is about 70 feet high. It's called Outlook Hill, and there's an ADA accessible path all the way to the top. The other 3 each have their own kind of identity. And I was just out there yesterday, and what the second highest hill, this is a view from the second highest hill, and you get this 360-degree panorama of New York City that blows your mind. So in just a couple years, you'll be able to come out here and go to the top of this hill and see this view of the New York Harbor, which will be really, really mind-blowing. So here it is in construction a few months ago, and I love this shot. This contractor, when he was building this, he came out and he was like, man, this is the greatest project in the world, you know? I mean, my friends are working on highways in New Jersey, and I got this job. This is so awesome. You know, I'm taking pictures and showing these people at parties. Nobody's seen this view of New York ever. And I said, man, you get it, you know? It's so cool. It's really awesome. It was really a great moment for me, so thank you.
Time for some questions?
Jamie, I really wanted to ask you about the sauerkraut festival.
Yes.
But I was instead I'll ask you about the soil mechanics to get this stuff to grow on top of this this dredge material and so forth. How did you ever figure that out, and what did you do? Did you have a specific recipe, who worked on that, and can you tell me a little bit about it?
Oh, it's such a great question because, you know, everything out here is artificial, right? So, and our ambition is to create an incredibly healthy forest. So, all of the soils are manufactured. They're actually were mixed on site. We have 6 different soil types and 9 different soil profiles. So each for these different plant communities, from ball fields to more acidic soils in Liggett, where the hedges are. It was hard work because of the pressure to construct this in a certain time frame. And last winter, you know, we had a really bad winter. We worked with Pine and Swallow soil scientists, and they're crazy, freaky, nerdy, great soil scientists that have built some of the most complex urban projects in New York City and around the country, so they know these issues. We basically had a profile of this, this engineered stuff, which is basically inert. There's no biological properties there, and then had 3 feet of soil where the trees are, and a foot of soil where the grasses are, and we also added this, biological goo that has amoebas and little creepy crawly stuff that accelerates the replication of a natural soil system. But one of the things that's I think one of the areas we called Hammock Grove, you saw that picture, the rendering of giant trees. We actually, for this, we created an afforestation project kind of in the heart right here. And because we really wanted this to be a healthy forest in the future, we had a whole different planting strategy that, to be honest, I haven't seen it in an urban park before. But the climate here is very unique, so we were worried about investing in trees that were 2.5, 3-inch caliper, and spreading them out, putting lawn underneath that you see in a typical kind of park installation. So we planted trees, the 46 different species of native kind of trees in 1.5-inch caliper, and we planted them on 5 foot on center. And then we underplanted those with we call them sacrificial trees. So these are the kind of trees that are helping to accelerate the nitrogen in the soil, and these are the kind of trees that they put in slash and burn, major recovery kind of installation projects. So these trees are these trees are planted alongside the beauty queen trees, the ones that we want to keep. And so this looks like a dunescape right now because there's so many trees there, but what they're doing is creating a competitive environment for these trees. And it's also, because they're planted young, they're going to be able to adapt to this unique environment. And for sure, not all of them will survive. We don't want them to survive. It's survival of the fittest, in fact. So that the ones that live are they're the ones that'll be the forest of the future. These areas, so 9 acres of the 30 acres is this planting strategy. We call it Hammock Grove. And it's actually fenced off with snow fencing. And for 5 years, it'll be fenced off. And you can imagine when you're building a public park in New York City and you're saying, for 5 years, no one will be able to access that part of the park. We were really nervous people would demand that we take down the fences because they want to get in there. But people are cool. They get all right, you're building a good forest? We can wait 5 years. So after 5 years, we'll take the fences down and we're going to see what's lived. And we're going to start, we have to self-select. We also have to sort of have the hand of God here and cull out those that we don't think are great trees. So over time, this sort of between trees dying and us sort of playing the hand of God, we're going to make a really healthy forest. But part of that is all this leaf litter and all that stuff is going to make the soil so much richer over time. And we don't get that benefit a lot, and as landscape architects, it's so much build it, construct it, get it done, get people in there, get people using it. So it was great that our client recognized the kind of need to make a very healthy plant environment for this place to survive. Now, I'm going on and on, but for the hills, these are slopes that are, we have everything from the most laid-back slope is about 3 to 1, but we have slopes that are 1 to 1.
I mean, that angle of repose that you drew there,
Yeah,
how
it's really
did you
happening.
get that?
So we, These are no dumb hills. So it's not only it's the geotechnical engineering for this was incredibly serious. So we had geotechnical engineers from Seattle who are used to working in wet, earthquake-prone areas on our team. And most of these engineering solutions are in land dikes, and you see them a lot in landfills and dams and things like that. So we were taking these technologies and using them to build these artificial landscapes. So it's on the sort of slopes that are 3 to 1 or less. We don't have to do any geotechnical engineering, and we don't have to do any soil reinforcement other than a sort of mat, erosion control mat right after installation. But on slopes from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1, 3 to 1 to 2 to 1, we use geotechnical fabric and sort of build up the landform like sausages. So you lay out the fabric, you put the soil down, you wrap it up, and then you put more soil down and wrap it up. And then you can put the topsoil on the front of this and use core logs and staking to reinforce that edge. And you seed right away, so you get grasses in there to kind of keep the soils in. Now on the slopes that are 2 to 1 to 1 to 1, you have to use a kind of a cage system. Mechanically stabilized earth is this cage system that essentially holds back the slope and holds back the soil so you can plant in the side. It's totally done. However, most of these people that design these mechanically engineered, the manufacturers of the mechanically engineered surfaces, like I said, are working on landfills and dams and stuff, and they don't like to see trees coming out of it. They're like, don't ever put trees there, because that's a real problem. Trees are a problem. We're like, no, we want to stuff it with trees. Is that okay? This is a big, exciting. I wouldn't say experiment, but but it's going to be very, totally, very, very. I don't know of any other urban parks that are doing this kind of stuff. Yes.
Who is this wonderful client that you have?
Oh yeah, she's. It's the Trust for Governors Island, and it's. Her name's Leslie Koch, and so the Trust for Governors Island is basically kind of it's like an agency that works. That's 100% funded by the city, but it's in charge of redevelopment of the island. So it's a small client group. It's like 5 of us in the room at the most at any one time. So, yeah. Yes.
I'm just curious. Currently, those docks are only for ferries, right?
Yes.
In the future, do you think that it'd be accessible to the public? Like if I had a boat to come there for the day, is that something you'd be thinking about?
We talked a lot about it. It's just very. It's not easy because the demand is so high and there's a lot of issues in the New York waterway. So there's ferry that comes. This ferry comes from here to here. Like in the summer, it carries about 1,000 people and their bikes. In the summer, there's also a ferry from Brooklyn that goes here, but they don't allow private boats. I mean, okay, so Beyonce and Jay-Z got to park there once, but not you and me. So, yeah.
These are great projects. The Blue Dunes in particular, Will and I are running a studio right now with both seniors and grad students looking at storm resilience issues for the working waterfront up in Providence. And I'm curious about shifting scales the way that you did for the Blue Dunes project. It seems like that scale is really different from the scale that landscape architects typically work at. And also, you were working with a research institute on that project in a way that seems also kind of novel. And I'm wondering if you can talk about the challenges of shifting scales like that and of working with an institute, with a research group on that kind of project that seems so different.
Yeah.
Because I think, we see this as the future, one half future for some of the students that are coming to our
It's a great, landscape architecture is a great area of expertise for bringing holistic thinking around systems. So engineers might try to solve problems. No offense to engineers. We love problem solvers, but when you're talking about places where humans live, work, play, like landscape architects think about those things in ways that are more, where they see relationships between these things together. We actually are now just starting a competition in Louisiana. It's called Changing Course. So that'll be the sort of new Rebuild by Design, the competition that we just finished with Blue Dunes. But this is looking at the whole lower Mississippi River and the Delta, and how sedimentation and, there's huge problems with sedimentation and deposition in the lower Mississippi River, and how it's affecting ecology and the working livelihood and so on, and the real need to solve those problems, or else these communities and these livelihoods, and these industries are going to die. I mean, huge swaths of cities and industries are not going to be around anymore if this isn't addressed. So we're teamed with an engineering firm, a very large, giant engineering firm, but they called us because they know that we bring this sort of human scale and the kind of balanced thinking about how ecology plays a role and how fishermen can contribute to that, and how economy is so tied to these industries, and how recreation can be a part of the sales and the value of these solving these problems. It's kind of it's not within our office. There are we have all sorts of skill sets. But we do have people that are literally working on the detail scale of how does that come together to these holistic things. We try to keep all these scales in our office because it's just more fun, to be honest. But it's key for us too, is we're not shoving our philosophy down anybody's throat. It's really there's experts, and 90% of what we do is facilitate these conversations and help in prioritizing. And so I think landscape architects are good listeners, and we can see, how these kind of individual expertises, how we bring those experts together into a whole vision. Yes.
These are great projects.
Thank you.
Just, I have a few questions that jump out. Looking at your projects, is there a principle that guides your work? Like, you've got angles on your landforms that are impossible to stabilize without geotextiles or soil mixes that are certainly not natural. And then you have plantings that you'd like to have an ecology probably suited for the area. What rules, what guides what you ultimately choose?
Well, I think what we like to do is one of the things that, if you go to our website, you'll see we have work all around the world, and none of it, I don't think, looks like the other project. So when we first start a project, we really dig deep into what this place is about. What's the identity? What's the soul? And we go right to the plants, to be honest. We're landscape architects. We go plants, history, culture. What is this? What is the DNA of this place? It's really an inspiration. So on Governor's Island, it was how do we bring the sensation of being on an island to this place, and getting up and seeing the water around the perimeter was like, it's what we have to do, right? And how do we do that? Oh, well, we can figure it out. So we didn't want to build architecture. We wanted to build, not a tower. We wanted to build landscape. So that's a very important principle, is to look at the unique qualities of a site and kind of derive the source from that. And then we also mix very pragmatic thinking with delight and fun. And I love that about our practice too, because we're not, I don't know, we get like, people come to parks to have a good time. This isn't like, a hospital. This is like a fun thing to do. People want to smile, they want to be with their family, they want to have a sandwich. And so sometimes it's okay to just have a little joy in what we do and exploit that a little bit. So we, even though some, like soundscape, we knew there was a small budget, and but we made these crazy, we sort of invested all our money in this very cool sculptural thing and left the rest be very simple. So it's a kind of mix of pragmatic thinking and wanting to bring a smile to something. I think it's important. Yes?
Now that your park is replacing active painters, how do you see the development zone's architecture and that skyline? And is that starting to encourage real estate investment increase?
Well, there were, it's funny, I was out there yesterday with some folks from San Francisco, and they're like, we really think it's a bad idea to have any development go along that edge. I was like, I know, but it is a redevelopment project. But all of these areas, so here and along that edge, have to go through a whole rezoning process and design guidelines and all this other stuff. There's a lot of projects that are happening in New York City right now, like big projects. So all of, the whole area here, Midtown, there's massive redevelopment projects happening. And so it's a little slow coming to New York City, to Governor's Island. The park just opened, and they had to do, rebuild the seawall and get drinking water out there. Like, all these infrastructure projects are now ready. So, it is the big question. And in fact, it was kind of depressing because our park opened and we were like, yay, maybe the press will say something about the park, that'd be great. And you read the article, yeah, there's a new park, West State designed it, it's really cool, but what is going to happen with the redevelopment, blah, 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 blah. And we're like, come on, just give us a little more love, Everybody wants to know about the redevelopment, and it just, what literally has to happen is the Trust for Governor's Island needs to put out a request for proposals for ideas from developers. And, I think they need to know, like, what's the right time for that to happen. We have a new administration, and he has a vision for what his priorities are, and I think they're great ideas, but it's really not about building he's very interested in affordable housing, and since there's very little housing that can go out here, then it's time will tell. But in the meantime, we're building the second phase of the park. So.
Why don't we take one more for now, and then if we have other questions that remain, you can talk to Jamie afterwards.
Yeah, I have a question about your first project in Miami Beach. Two-part question. First is, what construction materials did you use to create those pergolas that look so flexible? And then did you guys do like testing and modeling to see if they would withstand hurricane wind speeds and everything else that comes with a hurricane?
Yeah, we did. They're aluminum, and the foundations are enormous because we had to we did a lot of testing of that. And so one of the things that's great is we have we work in 3D all the time, and we had this exchange with our structural engineer pretty much like every day. We'd send him a model, he'd do some analysis on it and show, like it literally shows like hot spots and so on. He'd come back and we'd tweak this here or there. It was very iterative. It was very cool. Very good structural engineer. But it was a challenge because we didn't want it to look like, we didn't want these big pipes, and the pipe size is really quite small. And so it felt light and airy still, it didn't look like heavy-handed. Yeah, cool.
Well, I would like to say thank you very much, and if you do have questions that you would like to ask,
About the Sauerkraut Festival?
or anything, please ask your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.